Before you notice the taste, your body has already detected the signal. The cells of the stomach have recognized sulfur compounds and activated a cascade of responses you did not consciously request. There is no pain. There is no alarm. But there is internal movement, chemical reactions, messages exchanged between tissues. Garlic has just entered your system, and everything that follows happens without you having to think about it. The stomach receives the raw or cooked garlic and begins to break it down. Gastric juices attack the plant cells, releasing allicin, a highly reactive sulfur compound. That molecule does not remain still. It crosses the walls of the small intestine and enters the bloodstream within minutes. From there, it travels. It reaches the liver, the lungs, the brain, the kidneys. Each organ receives a diluted but active version of that garlic-derived compound, and each one responds. In the liver, allicin from garlic activates phase 2 enzymes. These enzymes are responsible for neutralizing toxins, for tagging harmful molecules so the body can eliminate them. The liver, which constantly works filtering blood, receives an extra boost when processing garlic compounds. It is not a violent effort. It is a subtle but sustained acceleration. Liver cells process faster. Free radicals, those unstable molecules that oxidize tissues, encounter resistance. The sulfur compounds in garlic do not eliminate them completely, but they slow them down. And that slowdown translates into less oxidative stress, less silent damage to cellular membranes. The liver functions as a permanent filter, and when garlic is present in the system, that filter works more efficiently, eliminating toxic metabolites with less accumulation of harmful byproducts. Meanwhile, in the cardiovascular system, something different happens. Sulfur compounds derived from garlic interact with endothelial cells, the ones that line the interior of the arteries. These cells release nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes the smooth muscles of blood vessels. When those muscles relax, the arteries widen. Pressure decreases. The heart pumps with less resistance. It is not a drastic change. It is not instantaneous, but it is measurable. And if garlic consumption is repeated, that slight arterial relaxation becomes a pattern that gradually reduces the effort the heart makes every second. Arteries that once worked under constant tension now find moments of flexibility. And that flexibility, sustained over time, reduces the risk of arterial stiffness, atherosclerotic plaques, and cardiovascular events. The immune system also receives the signal from garlic. White blood cells, specifically macrophages and T lymphocytes, react to sulfur compounds. They activate, but not in an exaggerated way. It is not acute inflammation. It is controlled preparation. These cells circulate more alert, more ready to identify pathogens. If there is a bacterium in the intestine, if there is a virus attempting to replicate in the mucous membranes, they encounter a more reactive barrier thanks to the effects of garlic. Garlic does not directly kill invaders, but it complicates the terrain. It makes adhesion, multiplication, and expansion more difficult. Macrophages respond more quickly to signals of infection. Lymphocytes produce antibodies with greater precision. The entire defensive system operates at an enhanced level of alert without falling into the hyperreactivity that generates autoimmunity. In the stomach, while all of this is happening, the intestinal microbiota is also responding to garlic. Beneficial bacteria, such as certain lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, tolerate garlic compounds. Some even metabolize them, converting them into anti-inflammatory substances that protect the intestinal mucosa. But pathogenic bacteria, those that generate toxic gases and inflame the intestinal walls, encounter a hostile environment when garlic is present. Garlic alters the microbial balance. It is not an antibiotic. It does not wipe everything out, but it does exert selective pressure. And that pressure, sustained over time, can tilt the balance toward a more stable, more diverse, more resilient intestinal flora in the face of external imbalances. The sulfur compounds in garlic continue circulating through the body. They reach the lungs. There, part of the allicin is excreted through the air you exhale. That characteristic garlic odor is not just a side effect. It is evidence that the compound crossed membranes, reached the alveoli, and is now leaving the body. But before it goes, it interacts with the cells of lung tissue. These cells also have receptors that respond to sulfur molecules, and that response includes a slight mucolytic action. Mucus becomes less dense. The airways clear more easily. It is a minor effect, but in the presence of congestion, that detail matters. The cilia that line the bronchi move more effectively, expelling particles trapped in mucus with less effort. In the brain, garlic-derived allicin does not arrive in large quantities, but it does cross the blood-brain barrier Once inside, it acts on glial cells, the ones that protect and nourish neurons. It reduces markers of neuronal inflammation. It does not magically improve memory. It does not instantly increase concentration. But it reduces background inflammatory noise, the kind that, accumulated over years, slowly deteriorates cognitive functions. Regular garlic consumption creates a less hostile environment for neurons, and that environment, over time, can translate into less loss of brain volume, better preservation of synaptic connections. The cells of the hippocampus, responsible for forming new memories, operate in a more stable chemical environment. Neurons in the prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and decision-making, face fewer oxidative attacks. The pancreas also receives signals from garlic compounds. Allicin influences insulin secretion. It does not trigger it uncontrollably, it moderates it. It causes pancreatic beta cells to release insulin in a way that is better matched to the glucose present in the blood. That means fewer sharp spikes, fewer sudden drops. Blood sugar remains more stable when garlic is part of the regular diet. And that stability, repeated day after day, reduces metabolic stress. It reduces protein glycation, the process by which sugar sticks to molecules and makes them rigid and dysfunctional. Garlic does not cure diabetes, but it makes one of its mechanisms of damage more difficult. Beta cells, which under conditions of chronic hyperglycemia become exhausted and die, find a less toxic environment. In the kidneys, the active compounds in garlic help filter more efficiently. They stimulate sodium excretion. That relieves fluid retention. It slightly lowers blood pressure, and it also protects kidney cells from oxidative stress. The kidneys filter liters of blood every hour. They are constantly exposed to toxins, metabolites, free radicals. Garlic does not shield them completely, but it gives them extra margin. It allows them to function with less accumulated damage. Nephrons, the functional units of the kidney, maintain their structure with greater integrity. Glomeruli, which act as microscopic filters, better resist daily wear and tear. The digestive system, after hours, still feels the presence of garlic. Cells of the small intestine absorb nutrients more efficiently when sulfur compounds are present in the environment. Intestinal permeability is regulated. The junctions between epithelial cells are reinforced thanks to the effects of garlic. That means less passage of endotoxins into the bloodstream, less low-grade systemic inflammation, less burden on the liver, less work for the immune system. The intestine, which functions both as a barrier and as an immune organ, operates with greater coherence. Paneth cells, which secrete antimicrobial peptides, receive support from garlic compounds. Goblet cells, which produce protective mucus, maintain mucosal integrity more easily. If garlic consumption is repeated, the effects accumulate. Not in a linear way, but synergistically. The liver becomes more efficient at its detoxification tasks. Arteries remain more flexible, more responsive. The immune system responds with greater precision, without exaggeration or deficiency. The microbiota stabilizes, favoring beneficial strains that produce short-chain fatty acids. The pancreas releases insulin more coherently, avoiding abrupt oscillations that damage tissues. The kidneys filter with less effort, preserving their functional structure. The brain better preserves its neural networks, protecting itself from silent deterioration. The lungs expel mucus more easily, reducing the likelihood of respiratory infections. It is not a visible change in the mirror. It is not a transformation you feel from one day to the next, but it is real, and it is measurable. The body that eats garlic regularly and the body that does not are living two different internal realities. In one, systems work with less friction. In the other, every process faces more resistance, more wear, more background inflammation. It is not morality. It is not discipline. It is chemistry. It is physiology. It is the difference between an internal environment that facilitates function and one that hinders it. Garlic is not a miraculous cure. It is not a magical supplement that solves all health problems. It is a common food that, upon entering the body, activates specific biochemical pathways that have been studied for years in laboratories around the world. Pathways that reduce chronic inflammation, that modulate blood pressure, that protect tissues from oxidative damage, that regulate blood glucose levels. And those pathways, activated consistently through repeated garlic consumption, change the terrain on which all other physiological processes occur. Each clove of garlic processed by the digestive system generates a cascade of molecular responses. Each molecule of allicin that crosses into the bloodstream carries chemical information that tissues recognize and process. There is no organ that remains completely indifferent to the presence of these garlic-derived sulfur compounds. From the stomach to the brain, from the liver to the lungs, each structure receives a version of that signal and translates it into function. The body does not forget what it receives. It records every molecule, every pattern, every habit. And garlic, small, pungent, common, is one of those signals that the human body recognizes, processes, and converts into a measurable internal response.